Right, you are still watching ENCA now, and this is Story of the Week. Today we're talking about Child Protection Week, which wraps up today. We've been hearing earlier about a manifesto from children to government, telling government of their rights, making their voices heard. We've been discussing a number of issues with our panel in studio here. Victorine, I want to come back to you now. And during the break, you raised a very important issue that one of the other places that children engage in and where they become vulnerable is the school environment. It's a place that very often parents cannot control that environment. They can be more active, I think, that's my personal opinion, sometimes in the school life of a child. What do we need to be doing to reduce violence in schools and to better protect our children while they're at school?
Thank you again for that, Danielle. I think when it comes to reducing violence in schools, I can't really say it's one person's responsibility or the other. First, how do we expose these children to that violence that they then take to school? So it falls back to the parents. But now, going back to the schools, I've just been cautioned here to mind my language because I used a hard word on you. So, and when it goes back to school, what do the teachers themselves, who are the only adult representatives that these children have in school, what do they perpetuate to these children? Because remember, a violent child will not just rock in a class and start hitting the teacher or doing something. It's always a retaliation. It's always a comeback from those children. So as teachers, as institutions, we have to be extremely cautious of not saying children are violent, because children learn from us, but saying we parents, our adults, are teaching children violence. But I think our school system is too soft. They really have to take it hard on children. That is where the protection would come in, where these children are more educated than complained of. Because what we hear is the complaint more than the education.
And Gugu, I see you wanting to jump in here.
Definitely. In terms of the school setting, she said it well, that it starts from the home. But in the school setting, say the Children's South Africa is saying the teacher, the learner have a responsibility to come together. We need good role modeling from the teacher. We need good role modeling from the home and the child, so that the child understands that I'm a partner in my learning. The teacher understands that I will deliver my teaching and everybody will be happy. And everybody will respect each other, simply because we are doing what we are supposed to do. But when time comes that the adult uses power on a child, then the child is going to come back, as Victorine is saying. So it's important for us to have a good understanding that there is positive discipline in the school setting, because a child has a right and the child has a responsibility. Same with the teacher. They have a right and they have a responsibility. So as long as everybody sticks to their rights and implements their responsibilities, then we have an ability to be at the same level and be able to deliver accordingly.
Of course, we have to acknowledge the circumstances, though. Often teachers are overworked, underpaid, under-resourced, classes are overcrowded, they're not teaching in ideal circumstances to be the kind of role models and to meet children halfway, especially when they have got societal issues in the community or where children are not able to meet them in that sort of equal partnership. But often teachers complain that parents are not supporting them in their role. Discipline in schools is a big problem because, we have this situation where corporal punishment is definitely, it's a no-no. It's been said, it's a decision that's been taken, but there's still situations where teachers are unsure of, how do I handle a situation? I'm going to come to you, Vusumuzi, because I don't want to leave you out of this conversation entirely. How do you think migrant children being disenfranchised partially from the education system, who is there to champion them? And how do we integrate them into that system as part of a legislated objective? And how do we make sure that they have access to the kind of opportunities and care and protection that everyone in this country should have access to?
I think, you see, the way that migrant children have been left out is such that when you look at the education system, the mere fact that when we talk about children's rights, we think that we're talking about native children and we're not talking about migrant children, when in actual fact these rights belong to every child, irrespective of the circumstances, whether they're migrant or not migrant children.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is that a community issue? Is there a feeling of community on the ground that no matter where you come from, whether you're Zimbabwean, Malawian, South African, whether you come from Nigeria or Lagos, wherever you come from, we are part of a community and our children are equal? Or is there a sense that children are your children are not part of our children?
I think it's not a community issue, really. I think I'd be lying if I thought that communities, differentiate, the children, because these children, they play, with native children, they live together, they visit each other. There is such, a very harmonious relationship, amongst the children.
So where does it go wrong?
The problem is with the authorities, the law. There is a big disconnect in the law, in the implementation and what we say. We say something else, but we don't say we don't do what we are saying. For example, when immediately we say the rights of the children and the interests of the children are of paramount importance, but all of a sudden when a child is born, we forget about the child, that the child has got a right to citizenship, and we cannot implement that. And those that are supposed to implement it, all of a sudden they start demanding things that are not even supported by the law. Then you have a situation, for example, where we are saying, there is a lot of crime, there are societal ills that we're facing, but we forget that, one, if we leave these children that are born in South Africa without citizenship, without any biometrics anywhere else, we just give them a documentation that says you've been born in South Africa, we are creating a problem for the future generation. We talk Agenda 2063, this kind of Africa that we're looking at. But what kind of Africa are we going to have when we've got thousands of children that are going to be adults who do not have IDs, birth certificates, no education? We're actually, dooming them to a life of crime, prostitution, and we're actually saying we're going to have lots and lots of, ghost criminals. I mean, the police force is going to be in all sorts of problems because they're going to be murderers who they cannot even trace because they don't have their fingerprints or anything else, because you don't expect that these children, after spending 18, 20 years in South Africa, they'll all of a sudden walk back to Zambia or Malawi, a place they've never been all their lives.
South Africa becomes their home.
South Africa becomes their home.
I want to interrupt you there because we're running out of time, and I want to get a very quick, one-sentence, quick key message from each of you to our viewers about Child Protection Week. I'm going to start off with you, Colonel.
I'm going to end with a quote, because when I read this, I thought it was brilliant, and it wraps everything up. It says, "There comes a time when silence equals betrayal.
Yes.
And the silence of good people is worse than the brutality of the bad people. Please report to SAPS. We have specialized units, we have specialized divisions, and we will do the best we can."
Great. Gugu, your last message.
Save the Children South Africa says a child has a voice, and a child must be given a voice in the home setting, in society, for us to be able to make a difference on the life of a child and improve the quality of their lives going forward.
The voice of the child. Vusumuzi, your last key message.
I think our children are the future. If we're going to segregate our children and say these are migrants, they are not supposed to be protected, we are only building a doomed future.
Great. Victorine, we're going to end off with you.
Yes, because we take parenting seriously. So I would say a child cannot be without an adult. So please listen to children and act with them.
Right, thank you very much to all of my guests this afternoon. This has been Story of the Week, and we've been chatting about child protection, a very important discussion as well, which needs to continue long after Child Protection Week is over on a daily basis. Right, I'll be back at the top of the hour with the latest news. Checkpoint is up next. Do stay with ENCA now.